What's up, guys? This is Jay Griff, and welcome back to the long-awaited return of the Dark Souls 2 Blog of Pain. So, now that we've got the main game behind us, we turn to the downloadable content for Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 1 had one DLC pack called Artorias of the Abyss, which was included with the Prepare to Die edition. Dark Souls 2 ups the ante in what I call the We Have Money Now edition, because they have 3 DLC packs which all center on you going around collecting the crowns of the kingdoms, which old King Vendrick thinks or thought that he could end the curse of the undead if he had them. So his memory, because you don't talk to him directly, he's a hollowed out husk in the game when you reach him, but you go into his memories, and his memory tells you to go find them, because he went into his tomb having failed in his efforts to secure them for himself. And so begins your new quest to find the crown of the Sunken King, the crown of the Old Iron King, and the crown of the Ivory King. Each a new area with new bosses, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about the first pack, the crown of the Sunken King, and what a return to form that was for the series. So the quest for the Sunken Crown takes you into Shulva, the Sanctum City. It's this beautiful subterranean world that I would describe as more Zelda than Zelda, because it's this enormous, dimly lit area. It's got multiple levels. There are switches and elevators made of stone all over the place. There's hidden paths, and there's this huge labyrinth of a ziggurat that's filled with these super tough enemies and secret doors, and I got extremely lost in there. It's awesome. So, as you explore, you start encountering enemies that are loaded with both poison and poise. Like infinite, cannot be staggered poise no matter what you hit them with. And you find out that Shulva is long since fallen from some calamity. And it's a calamity that comes to greet you by the name of Sin, the slumbering dragon. So, seems simple enough at first. Kingdom here, dragon comes, everybody dies, whatever. But not quite so. As you uncover the story, you discover that it is a case of first came the dragon, and then came the kingdom. You see, Shulva and the massive temple that you are forced to navigate were created to honor and worship Sin as he slept beneath the earth, harboring inside of him a terrible poison that, if released, could kill just about everyone. So for a long time, Shulva prospered and grew, and everything was fine, until Sir Jorg and his Dragon Blood Knights invaded. The story with these guys is that they believed in the power they could draw from the dragon blood, and they wanted to kill the dragon to do so. His ring, that is Jorg's ring, if very closely inspected, also appears to be the symbol of Drangleic. So he may have been sent there by Vendrick to claim the crown, and he failed. Regardless, Jorg did manage to attack Sin as he slept, and he stabbed him with a massive spear that is actually still lodged in the dragon. You see it when he's flying around when he's fighting you. And that woke him up, naturally. At this point, everything went very poorly for Jorg, and for Shulva, because Sin woke up, he released the poison that he'd been holding up in him, and he just bodied everybody in the kingdom. You find Jorg's corpse in the boss room with Sin, so it is like he was one of the first people who just got destroyed. So now, Sin remains in Shulva, and he's kept calm, seemingly, by the singing of Alana, the Squalid Queen. Alana is an incarnation of the Dark Soul. She is very similar to Nishandra, and is focusing her efforts on keeping Sin in place and preventing people like you from challenging him. So that's the story. But what about the gameplay? What about the design, Oh, it's amazing. It is amazing. I love this area. It seriously feels like a different team built this part of the game. There's so much care and attention was put into making the paths that twist and they intertwine in confusing, creative ways. The enemy placement is perfect. You can't just go bumbling into any fight or you will get your ass just obliterated. It forces you to really think your next step through. And they changed up the enemy types. Brand new enemies in here. Everything has poison, all of them. And only the witches, who are few and far between, can be staggered at all. Because everything else has infinite poison. That really changes the way you have to approach a fight, especially if you're using some sort of heavy build or great sword build. You can't just rush in there and say, well, I'll hit him and then he'll stumble. It doesn't happen. They destroy you if you try to be like that. They also introduced these new spirit enemies, and they can't be harmed unless you find a way to destroy the tombs that give them form. And when the first two that you meet, they're staring at those tombs, so you know exactly what you need to do, unless you're stupid. I've seen some LPs where people can't figure that out. But you destroy those things, they get their bodies back, you can kill them. But then the next ones, their bodies are hidden, so you gotta go find them, and that sucks! Because you got these guys chasing you all over, and they get these two huge swords, and they're just beating your ass all over the place. It is amazing. It makes the challenge of getting through that area so good. It's like something out of Dark Souls 1. It seriously is like a different team made it. It's nuts. The bosses are a bit different, though. Let's start with Alana. Do we have footage of Alana? Do we have that?
Yeah, but we're gonna have to go ahead and skip to the final boss because I've been standing here for about 35 minutes and I can't get anybody to summon me for the Waypoint boss, the Squalid Queen. I guess everybody prefers the NPCs. I don't know what the hell's going on with this nonsense. The ghosts are walking by, they're not picking it up. Sorry, go ahead and skip to Sin.
Okay, then. I'll just talk over some borrowed footage from TVFP. This is footage of Wooly fighting Alana. So, Alana is not a great fight. She has a really simple moveset that she can kind of vary up, and she warps around, and she does a ton of damage. That's all good, but she summons ads into the fight, and one of those summons is just a bunch of skeletons. They aren't too much trouble. But the other one that she summons is Velstadt, and that's a boss from the base game. He is a huge problem because he is super tough, and he will hound you relentlessly until you kill him. And it gets worse because she can summon him again as soon as you kill him. So you're wasting all of your time focusing on this stupid ad, and then you finally turn back to the boss and you say, okay, now it's you versus me. She just summons him again! What are you supposed to do? It's not a well-designed boss fight. You've designed a way to stop the player from doing the boss fight. You didn't make the boss fight harder or better. That's stupid. I hate it. I hate when they put ads and extra enemies in the boss fight. It sucks. It always sucks. It has never made a boss fight better. It's just this never-ending loop of a decent boss summoning another boss to compensate for the fact that it's not great. I hate it. I hate it. It took me a long time to beat her. The other boss, however, Sin. Okay, he's fucking awesome. He's extremely high health, extremely high damage. He's very high mobility type of boss. He's not a sit in one area and you gotta lay on the damage forever. He is all over the place. His area, his boss arena, is enormous, and he will trash that place to shit while he's flying around trying to trash you. He will lay down these clouds of flame and toxic, not poison, mind you, toxic, which kills you real fast, and he will try to kite your ass through it. He will try to get you to go through it to attack him. He will outright crush you, or he will burn you from half the way on the map. He will just slam your guard as he swoops down on you. It's amazing. You gotta bring your A game if you're gonna handle Sin. Oddly enough, I beat him after only one death. And as I was fighting him, it hit me as to why this clearly well-designed and extremely tough boss seemed to be going down so quickly when I dodged one of his attacks. Because I immediately thought, as this particular attack happened, you can't get me with that, man. I fought Calamite, and it hit me. He was practically a 100% clone of Black Dragon Calamite from the DLC of Dark Souls 1. And Calamite had thoroughly wrecked my shit in Dark Souls 1. Until I learned his pattern, until I figured out how Calamite had to be fought, he was just a massacre. It was unbelievable. And so naturally, like you don't fight Calamite and then forget about it. That fight's in your head forever. So I was walking into this boss fight and I knew 75% of how Sin was going to fight without ever even seeing him fight. And that's a little disappointing. But I also understand that there's a lot of people who are playing this game who did not play Dark Souls 1. And if you're going to steal, you steal from the best. And the best dragon boss fight is Calamite. It just is. So if you got to steal from him, whatever. Got it. Another thing I noticed about Sin is that you can cut off his tail. And there's nothing new about that in the Souls series. You can cut off a lot of dragons' tails, but you don't get anything for it. And in the past, if you cut a dragon's tail off, you got a special weapon. And I mean all of them. The Hellkite Drake, the Gaping Dragon, Seath the Scaleless, the Everlasting Dragon, and Black Dragon Calamite. These are all the dragons you could fight. You could take off all of their tails, and if you did, you got a special weapon. And I don't know why they stopped doing that. Did they do it, to try to lend integrity to the plot? I mean, they didn't seem to care about that in the base game. Or maybe they didn't have time and it was a lazy thing, or I don't know. But I don't know why they stopped, and I really wish they hadn't. I really like the unique dragon weapons that you can only get by fighting them in a very specific way. You don't just need their soul to make it. You gotta get around behind that bastard and do enough damage to one spot in order to get that weapon. And to this day, I still have never been able to get the Moonlight Greatsword from Seath. I can't survive back there. So, like, the dragon weapons were really a cool kind of bragging rights sort of deal, and they were usually very, very, very powerful. So I really wish that they had done that this time around. Anyway, so that's the first DLC. I really like it. It's a complete return to form, and it's amazing. Next time we'll talk about DLC Pack 2, The Crown of the Old Iron King, and eventually I'll put up an episode talking about the challenge areas, because there are optional challenge zones in each of these DLCs, and I've only done one of them, and challenge zone is correct. They are something else. But hey guys, this has been Jay Griff, and thanks for listening.